Vector, the Barian Emperor fueled by hatred. This scheming little gremlin finds no greater satisfaction in inflicting emotional pain and trauma on his foes, like when he disguised himself as Ray to be a fake friend to Yuma, or when he tortured Nash to get the upper hand against Duman and Marin. He even subjugated number 96, a fragment of Dawn 1000, to gain its powers. But for all of his character moments, his deck is mostly a mystery, and it's been far too long since the end of Zexal for him to be relying on the same old tricks all these years later. So today, let's take a look and see what new tricks might be up Vector's sleeve if he was still dueling today. Vector's deck was predominantly comprised of Umbral horror monsters, such as Umbral horror Will-o'-the-Wisp, Ghost, Unform, and Ghoul. Since these are the only Umbral horror main deck monsters to this date, and his deck is supposed to be focused on them, we'll graciously allow Vector 2 copies of each. Umbral horror Will-o'-the-Wisp's effect activates when it's summoned, targeting another Umbral horror on the field or in the grave to change its level to that monster's. If it's destroyed in battle while in attack position, Wisp destroys the monster that destroyed it. Ghost can summon itself in another level 4 or lower fiend from the hand during the main phase, but the player cannot normal summon or set monsters during the turn they use this effect, and the effect can only be used once per turn. Unform's effect only activates if it was destroyed by battle in a battle that it started. It summons 2 Umbral horrors from the deck, and this effect can only be used once per turn. Once per turn, Ghoul can reduce its attack points to 0 to summon an Umbral horror with 0 attack points from the hand. Now, since Vector did absorb number 96 Dark Mist, why don't we just give him Dark Mist's monsters too? Malysvor's Fork, Knife, and Spoon. Fork can discard another fiend to summon itself from the hand. When Knife is normal summoned, it summons a Malysvorus with a different name from the grave. If Spoon is on the field when a Malysvorus with a different name is summoned, it can summon a level 2 fiend from the grave with its effects negated. One card that can immediately go in theme with the Malysvorus monsters is Soul Scissors. If a monster on the field is destroyed and sent to the grave, it can be summoned from the graveyard, but it gets banished when it leaves the field. When summoned from the grave, Soul Scissors can destroy a monster the opponent controls. 3 more level 2 dark monsters that can be made useful in this deck are Capshell, Necro Defender, and Caligo Clawcrow. If Capshell is tributed, used as fusion, synchro, or link material, or if it's detached from an Xyz monster to activate its effect, Capshell can draw a card, but it can only do one of these functions each turn and only once that turn. Necro Defender can banish itself from the graveyard to target a monster the player controls, and until the end of the opponent's next turn, it protects that monster from battle and nullifies battle damage the player would have taken from battles involving it. Caligo Clawcrow can be special summoned if the player controls a dark monster, making it a useful level 2 dark extender. Next, we have Interplanetary Purply Thorny Beast and Dragon to help Vector make some rank 5s. Both basically have the same effect to summon themselves if one of the player's monsters is destroyed in battle, but Beast summons itself from the grave and gets banished when it leaves the field after being summoned this way, and Dragon summons itself from the hand. Next, we've got 3 cards that might seem out of place in this deck at first glance, but are cards that Vector can use to inflict greater emotional pain on Yuma, by reminding him of his Dark Zexal form. Zexal Service Ouroboros Sage, Dark Zexal Weapon Chimera Clad, and V Salamander, one of the V cards that Vector used to betray Yuma in their duel at Sargasso. When Ouroboros Sage is normal summoned, it can summon a non-light number monster from the grave with its effects negated, then equip itself and a Utopia monster the player controls to it. Each has equip spells that grants 1700 attack points, but the player can only declare 1 attack for the rest of the turn. When the equipped monster attacks an opponent's monster, Ouroboros Sage can double its attack, but destroy it during the end phase. Chimera Clad can equip itself from the hand or field to a Chaos number 39 monster the player controls, making it indestructible in battle. At the end of the damage step when the equipped monster attacks the opponent's monster, but they weren't destroyed, it can make the opponent's monster's attack become 0. Then the equipped monster can make a second attack on the same monster in a row. When V Salamander is normal summoned, it can summon a Utopia monster from the player's graveyard. It can equip itself to a Chaos number 39 Utopia Ray V on the field. Once per turn, while equipped, V-Salamander can detach a material from the equipped monster and negate its effects to destroy all cards the opponent controls, and burn them for 1000 damage for each monster destroyed by that effect. There's only one spell or trap that even mentions Umbral Horror in its text, so let's start the back row segment with that. Corrupted Keys targets an Xyz monster the player controls, and summons 3 Umbral Horror tokens with the same attack points, but they can't attack directly or be tributed except for a tribute summon. If the Xyz monster leaves the field, the tokens go too. Recurring Nightmare is going to be an honorary piece of Umbral Horror support. It adds 2 dark monsters with 0 defense points from the grave to the hand. It might not be able to get Ghost back, but it's the best they're gonna get. For Vector's deck, the Barian suite has grown rather large, so we're gonna split it up, starting off with 7th Ascension, 7th Force, and 7th Eternity. 7th Ascension can grab another 7th spell or trap, Barian spell or trap, or rank up magic quick play spell, and either add it to the hand or stack it on top of the deck. If the opponent controls a monster summoned from the extra deck, Ascension can banish itself from the grave and send a rank up magic from the hand to the grave to copy that spell's effect. 7th Force activates during the battle phase if a monster was destroyed. It targets a number in the grave, and ranks it up into a chaos number of the same type. Then, if it was an over 100 number, 7th Force also adds a 7th or Barian spell or trap, or rank up magic quick play spell from the deck to the hand. 7th Eternity targets an over 100 number monster in the player's control, or any monster they control that has an over 100 number monster as material, and either negate the effects of an opponent's monster with equal or fewer attack points than the targeted monster, or detach all materials from the monster and summon a number from the graveyard. Next we have 4 rank up magics. The 7th one, Quick Chaos, Barian's Force, and Limited Barian's Force. Rank Up Magic, the 7th one, activates only if it's drawn as the normal draw at the start of the turn. It reveals itself in the hand and stays revealed until the start of the first main phase of the turn, where it can then be activated to summon an over 100 number monster from the extra deck or graveyard and immediately rank it up. Quick Chaos is a quick play rank up magic that ranks up a number monster into a chaos number with the same number in its name. Barian's Force is the standard rank up magic, ranking up any Xyz monster into a chaos number or chaos Xyz of the same type but 1 rank higher. After that, Barian's Force gets to steal an overlay unit from an opponent's Xyz monster and attach it to the newly summoned monster. Limited Barian's Force ranks up exclusively rank 4 monsters into any rank 5 chaos number, allowing for some interesting combos that might not normally be compatible. Then we have Barian's Chaos Draw and Barian Untopia to finish out the standard Barian suite. Barian's Chaos Draw is mechanically congruent to the 7th one, where it has to be drawn as the normal draw for turn in order to be used. When activated at the start of the main phase, it can send either a 7th normal spell from the deck to the grave to copy that spell's effect, or summon up to 2 monsters from the deck, negate their effects, and immediately Xyz summon a number using those 2 monsters as material. Barian Untopia protects the player's over 100 number monsters and chaos number monsters from being targeted or destroyed by the opponent. Once per turn, if the player summons an Xyz monster with a rank up magic effect, Untopia can take an opponent's monster and absorb it into the newly summoned monster as an overlay unit. But I did just say the standard Barian suite. And with all the dealings Vector has had with Dawn 1000, he's not really a standard Barian. So we'll grant him Rank Up Magic Admiration of the Thousands, contract with Dawn 1000, and Dawn 1000's Throne. Admiration of the Thousands targets at least 1 Xyz monster in each graveyard that all have the same rank, then summons a Chaos number or Chaos Xyz monster whose rank is 1 higher than all of those monsters, and attach the targets to it as overlay units. But other monsters can't be summoned during the turn this card is used. This does mean the opponent has to be on Xyz monsters too, so it's not always going to come up, but it's a part of the Dawn 1000 suite, and I couldn't just leave it out. Contract with Dawn 1000 makes both players lose 1000 life points upon activation. Then both players draw a card, and keep those cards revealed in their hand. While the player has a spell revealed by this effect in their hand, they can't normal summon or set monsters. Dawn 1000's Throne lets the player gain life points at the end of each opponent's turn, up to the number of times they took damage that turn times 500. When a number monster the player controls is targeted for an attack, Dawn 1000's Throne can be sent to the grave to rank up that number. Glorious numbers can be activated if the player controls no monsters, and summons a number from their grave, then they draw a card. Glorious numbers can be banished from the grave to attach a card from the hand as an overlay unit onto a number the player controls. For a few Xyz cards, we'll add in Xyz Import, Xyz Align, and Xyz Reborn. Import targets an Xyz monster the player controls and a monster the opponent controls with less or equal attack to attach the opponent's monster to the Xyz monster as an overlay unit. Xyz Align changes the levels of 2 face-up monsters on the field, including at least one monster the player controls, to a level from 1 to 12. But for the rest of the turn, the player can only summon monsters with the same type as a targeted monster from the extra deck. Xyz Reborn summons an Xyz monster from the graveyard and attaches itself as an overlay unit onto it. Finishing out the main deck, we have Chain Summon and Purge Ray. Chain Summon can be activated if the player controls 2 or more Xyz monsters, targeting the one with the lower rank to summon one from the extra deck with an even lower rank, but it can't attack directly, and it's returned to the extra deck at the end phase. Purge Ray tributes an Xyz monster to allow the player to summon a number of the same type, but one rank lower at the end of the turn. Starting off the side deck, Vain Betrayer was the card that Vector used to inflict trust issues on Yuma. When the opponent's Xyz monster attacks, it activates to target the attacking monster, preventing it from attacking and negating its effects. While that monster is on the field, it sends the top 3 cards of the opponent's deck to the grave during each of their end phases. When that monster leaves the field, Vain Betrayer gets destroyed. Next, we've got a side strategy based on Vector's original deck, from when he was a brainwashed, tyrannical, warmongering ancient ruler. Gorgonic Ghoul, Gorgonic Cerberus, Gorgonic Gargoyle, and Gorgonic Golem. If the player controls a Gorgonic Ghoul, they can summon another from the hand for 300 life points, but this effect can only be used twice per turn. Due to this, we'll give Vector all 3 copies of Gorgonic Ghoul. When Gorgonic Cerberus is normal summoned, it can make all of the player's rock monsters become level 3. When the player normal summons a rock, Gorgonic Gargoyle can be summoned from the hand. If Gorgonic Golem is destroyed by battle and sent to the grave, the attack points of the monster that destroyed it become 0. Golem can also be banished from the grave to target a set spell or trap the opponent controls, and prevent it from being activated that turn. The opponent also can't activate the targeted card in response to Golem's activation. The main payoff for these cards is Gorgonic Guardian, who requires 2 level 3 rocks. Once during either player's turn, Gorgonic Guardian can detach a material to make an opponent's face-up monster's attack become 0 and negate its effects for the turn. Once during the player's turn, Gorgonic Guardian can target and destroy a monster with 0 attack on the field. Due to the fact that this is the main payoff for the Gorgonic strategy, we'll grant Vector a second copy of Gorgonic Guardian. He also had 2 of it in his ancient deck, so it works out anyways. To add another payoff though, we'll also add in Giant Soldier of Steel, who's also summoned using 2 level 3 rocks. It's unaffected by other monsters' effects, and once during either player's turn, it can detach a material to gain 1000 defense points and make the player immune to burn damage for the turn. And for the final rank 3, we'll toss in number 75 Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, who somehow never appeared in the anime or manga despite how sinister this guy looks. It requires 2 or more level 3 monsters, and once per turn, when an opponent's monster effect activates, number 75 can detach 2 materials to change that effect to allow both players to draw a card. Number 75 can also target another number monster the player controls, and attach itself and its Xyz materials to that monster as overlay units. You know what's another level 3 Dark Rock though? Cyberjar! That's right, we're gonna give Vector a few Jar cards too, since their vibes are entirely sinister. When Cyberjar is flipped, it destroys all monsters on the field, then reveals the top 5 cards in each player's deck. Each player then summons all of the level 4 or lower monsters in face-up attack position or face-down defense position, and the remaining cards are added to the hand. To round out the side deck, we'll add Morphing Jar number 2, and Greed Jar. When Morphing Jar is flipped, both players discard their hands and draw 5 cards. When Morphing Jar number 2 is flipped, it shuffles all monsters on the field into the deck. Then both players excavate cards equal to the number of monsters they shuffled into the main deck, and summon all excavated level 4 or lower monsters in face-down defense position, sending the rest to the grave. When Greed Jar is flipped, it applies 2 effects in sequence. First, the player excavates any number of cards from the top of the deck up to the number of cards the opponent controls, adding 1 to the hand and sending the rest to the grave. Then, it sends monsters from the extra deck to the grave up to the number of monsters from the extra deck the opponent controls, so it could be a good way to fill up the grave for admiration of the thousands. Starting off the extra deck, we have a couple of cards that I think do a good job of representing the dichotomy that is Ray Shadows and Vector. Tiras, Keeper of Genesis, and Adrius, Keeper of Armageddon. Tiras' effect can only be applied and resolved while it has Xyz material, and it can't be destroyed by card effects. At the end of the battle phase when it battled, it targets a card the opponent controls and destroys it. Each end phase, Tiras has to detach an overlay unit. Once per turn, Adrius can detach an overlay unit to target and destroy an opponent's face-up card. All of the rest of the extra deck is going to be numbers, so we're going to split them up. First, we have numbers 5, 43, 65, and 66. Number 5, Doom Chimera Dragon, can be summoned with 2 or more level 5 monsters, and gains 1000 attack for each overlay unit it has. At the end of a battle phase when it battled, it can either attach a monster from the player's graveyard onto itself as an overlay unit, or place a card from the opponent's grave on top of their deck. Number 43, Manipulator of Souls, takes 3 level 2 dark monsters. Once per turn, it can detach a material to equip a number from the grave to itself. While equipped with a number, Manipulator of Souls can't be destroyed. Once per turn, when the player gains life points, it gains an equal amount of life points, and burns the opponent for that amount if it's still on the field. So make sure to use this guy alongside Don Thousand's Throne. Number 65, Jin Buster, is the Mytherian number that contains Vector's horrible memories as a human. It's summoned using 2 level 2 dark monsters, and when the opponent activates a monster effect, Jin Buster can detach 2 materials to negate the activation and burn them for 500 damage. Number 66, Master Key Beetle, is summoned using 2 level 4 dark monsters. Once per turn, it can detach material to target another card the player controls and apply 2 effects. The targeted card can't be destroyed by card effects, and if Master Key Beetle would be destroyed, it can send the targeted card to the grave instead. Each of these monsters, besides Master Key Beetle, has a Chaos Xyz evolution. Chaos number 5, Chaos number 43, and Chaos number 65. Chaos Chimera Dragon gains 1000 attack for each overlay unit it has. If it attacks, at the end of the damage step, it can detach a material to attack an opponent's monster again in a row. At the end of the battle phase, Chaos Chimera Dragon can pay half the player's life points to target 2 cards in any graveyard, place one of them on top of the deck, and attach the other to itself as an overlay unit. High Manipulator of Chaos allows the player's tokens to attack twice each battle phase. If it has Manipulator of Souls as material, once per turn, it can detach a material to summon a Manipulator token with attack and defense equal to half the opponent's current life points. Once per turn, King Overfiend can detach a material to make an opponent's face-up monster lose 1000 attack and defense points. If it has Jin Buster as material, it prevents the opponent's monsters from activating their effects on the field. Next, we have a Fragment of Don Thousand. Number 96, Dark Mist, summoned using 3 level 2 monsters. Once per battle, when it battles, it can detach a material to have the opponent's monsters attack and gain that much attack. Number 96 also has a Chaos Xyz evolution. Chaos number 96, Dark Storm. It can't be destroyed in battle, and the opponent takes all damage from battles involving it. If it has Dark Mist as material, it gains the effect to, once per battle, when it battles, detach an overlay unit to change the opponent's monster's attack to 0, and have itself gain attack equal to the opponent's monster's original attack. Next, we have another Xyz monster that never appeared in the anime or manga, but doesn't feel like it belongs in anybody's hands except for Vector. Number 98, Antitopian. It's summoned using 2 level 4 monsters, and when the opponent declares an attack, it can detach a material to change that monster to defense mode. Here's the kicker though. When Antitopian is in the grave, it can target a Utopia monster anywhere on the field, including, say, an opponent's Utopia monster if Vector is up against Yuma, and summon itself in defense position, attaching that opponent's monster to itself as an overlay unit. Now that is treachery. But what's even more treacherous? Taking that stolen Utopia under Antitopian, and ranking up Antitopian into a monster that Vector used to sow the seeds of ultimate betrayal. Chaos number 39, Utopia Ray V. When Utopia Ray V is destroyed by an opponent's monster, it returns an Xyz monster from the player's graveyard to the extra deck. If it has a Utopia monster as a material, it gains the once per turn effect to detach a material to target a monster the opponent controls, destroy it, and burn the opponent for that monster's attack value from when it was on the field. So you see the strategy here, right? Vector uses Antitopian to steal Yuma's Utopia, then use a card like Limited Barion's Force to make Utopia Ray V, which will then have a Utopia monster under it as material. It's evil genius, and that's the exact type of genius Vector is. But speaking of evil genius, we've come to the end of the extra deck, with Vector's ace monster. Number 104. Force these foolish insects to grovel at your feet. Masquerade! Once per turn, it can send the top card of the opponent's deck to the grave. During either player's battle phase, Masquerade can detach a material to negate an opponent's monster effect activation and deal 800 damage. But over 100 number monsters do what over 100 number monsters do best, and rank up into their Chaos Xyz evolution. Appear, Chaos number 104. Baryon power assaults the light to delight the darkness. Appear rank 5, Umbral Horror Masquerade. When it's summoned, it can destroy a spell or trap on the field. While it has Masquerade as an overlay unit, once per turn, when the opponent activates a monster effect, Umbral Horror Masquerade can detach a material, negate the activation, send a random card from the opponent's hand to the graveyard, cut their life points in half, stomp on their toe, spit in their face, and tell them that they're worth less than Bronx Stone! Okay, I might have made up half of that, but you get the point. It's a brutal effect. But that's also going to wrap it up for Vector. If you want to hear an explanation of the cards in this deck, keep watching. Greetings, I am Wham Bam Duel, and welcome to the explanation segment. To those new to the channel, you may have noticed that the profile segment was rather similar to the deck profiles made by Spell Commander 91. This is on purpose though, as he and I are frequent collaborators, and we decided to bring everybody more deck profiles by splitting up some of the work. So, to visiting viewers, welcome, and to returning viewers, welcome back. To start, I want to give a message to any Konami employees who are totally watching this video. Please make Umbral Horrors good. At least for a format, I'm not talking about people just running Masquerade as a 7th Tachyon target in Ryziel. I mean the actual archetype. Make it good, please. Just give us anything. I don't care how toxic it ends up being. Just give us anything to make Vector's deck playable. I only added in all these random level 2 monsters because they conveniently worked well with the cards already in the deck. But now to move on and talk about other things, I thought it'd be appropriate to take Vector's Yuma-hating personality and manifest it in his deck too. The combo of ranking up Antitopian into Utopia Ray V is something I am way too proud of. I'm probably not even the first one to think of doing it. But once Utopia Ray V is unleashed, that's where Ouroboros Sage, Chimera-Clad, and V Salamander come in. Basically allowing you to Voltron Utopia Ray V into an absurdly high-statted monster that can just keep attacking with full rage Chimera-Clad and V Salamander, or make use of it with Ouroboros Sage to power up another number, or just use V Salamander's effect to repeatedly burn them and wipe their board. Even though Ouroboros Sage, Chimera-Clad, and Utopia Ray V are technically Yuma's cards, I wouldn't be surprised if Vector could tap into some of that Dark Zexal power by absorbing number 96, and using a super buff Utopia Ray V against Yuma to remind him of that Dark Zexal trauma sounds exactly like something Vector would do. I will say though, Antitopian isn't the only way for Vector to steal Utopia to make Utopia Ray V's effect go live. Regular Baryon's Force can steal an overlay unit, which might include a Utopia monster if Yuma's making Chaos Xyz evolutions, which we all know he is. Baryon Untopia can absorb an opponent's monster as material onto Utopia Ray V, as can Xyz Import. An Admiration of the Thousands can even do it if it's using rank 4s, including a Utopia in the graveyard. The inclusion of the jars is just something I thought of as I was looking for other low-level rocks to pair with the Gorgonic cards. First, Cyber Jar is a matching Dark Level 3 rock, then Morphing Jar number 2, and Greed Jar for the sake of adding more creepy little jars, and Vector has kind of a deck destruction side strategy with Masquerade's milling effect and Vayne Betrayer's effect, so Morphing Jar and Cyber Jar also feel pretty at home there too. And if the opponent happens to be running Xyz monsters, Breed Jar could be nice for filling up the grave with Xyz monsters whose ranks equal the rank of at least one Xyz in the opponent's grave to make Admiration of the Thousands live. The ideal situation, of course, is to send Tiras, Adrius, and number 5 to the grave, and then use them with any number of rank 5s in the opponent's grave to make Chaos Chimera Dragon. But that's an extremely specific scenario, of course. But also, even if you just make it the normal way, it's part of why I added in Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, who can easily add 3,000 or 4,000 attack points to it. Huh? What did I leave out? That's a funny joke there, because there are virtually none of any importance. I left out a few Barian cards that don't belong to him, as well as Sargasso the Different Dimension Battlefield and Sargasso Lighthouse, because they're just awful. The vast majority of cards he used, including further Umbral Horror support, are all anime exclusives. Same with the Shining deck he used under the facade of being Raised Shadows. Please just give us more Vector cards. You could even make the Shining deck as Umbral Horror support somehow, I'm sure of it. But until we get new Vector cards, that's gonna be it for the deck. I've been Wham Bam Duel, and I'm always happy to see ya.